Tonight, midair scare. A Southwest plane just minutes after takeoff, plunging 475 feet to avoid a mid-air collision with another plane. That other aircraft, an old British fighter jet known as a Hawker Hunter. Passengers describing that terrifying moment on board, saying the pilot announced they had performed the maneuver to avoid disaster. 130 million Americans on heat alert from Texas to Maine. Temperatures feeling like triple digits along the East Coast, coupled with severe storms. This, as flooding in Kansas and Missouri brings high water rescues. That flood threat continuing overnight. What to expect this weekend where you are. Plus, heat exhaustion versus heat stroke. Do you know what signs to look for in you and your children? President Trump says he's not thought about pardoning Jeffrey Epstein's former companion Ghislaine Maxwell, now serving 20 years in prison for trafficking teenage girls. This comes as the Justice Department meets with Maxwell for a second day, and the pressure increases to release those files. Tragedy at a famous water park. A 9-year-old child has died after being in distress in the wave pool at Hershey Park in Pennsylvania. More than 100 lifeguards in the area at the time, 10 dedicated to that wave pool, who, along with medical staff, performed life-saving measures in an effort to save the child's life. We'll have the story. And it's the highest-grossing film franchise of all time. And now its latest heroes are ready to make their mark. The stars of the Fantastic Four, First Steps, talk with our Linsey Davis about the new movie, what it's like to join such a storied universe, and sharing screen time with their 5th co-star.
You again.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Morgan Norwood in for Linsey Davis. We thank you so much for streaming with us on this busy Friday night. We are, of course, tracking that brutal heat dome and the triple-digit temperatures. But first, we do begin with the latest alarming incident in our skies. A Southwest plane, just minutes after takeoff, plunging to avoid another plane. Flight tracking data shows the plane diving 475 feet from an altitude of 14,000 feet just after taking off from Burbank, California. Passengers say the pilot announced they had performed the maneuver to avoid a mid-air collision. The other plane, an old British fighter jet known as a Hawker Hunter. Though it's unclear exactly how close the two planes were to one another. Tonight, passengers are describing the terrifying moments on board. Trevor Alt leads us off with the details just now coming in.
Tonight, a Southwest flight violently dropping hundreds of feet as the pilot tried to avoid a mid-air collision with a former British fighter jet.
It was chaos. There was screaming. There was just people were frightened.
It happened about 6 minutes after takeoff at Burbank Airport. The plane bound for Las Vegas suddenly dropping 500 feet when the Southwest pilot got a warning from the collision avoidance system.
There was about, I would say, an 8 to 10 second drop of free fall. Never experienced that. It's terrifying. It shakes you to the core.
As the plane leveled off, passengers say the pilot told them what had happened.
2 to 3 minutes later, the pilots got on the intercom and told everybody that they had maneuvered the aircraft to avoid a mid-air collision.
Passengers say the fasten seatbelt sign was still on, but drink service was just starting.
All that I could physically see was that the flight attendant was injured. It looked to me like that she had a head injury because she had the ice pack on her head for the remainder of the flight.
It comes just days after a Delta regional jet landing at Minot International in North Dakota made a hard turn after spotting a B-52 bomber. The Air Force says that military jet seen here flying over a state fair had its location turned off and was never told about an inbound commercial jet by Minot's air traffic control. And tonight, passengers on board that Burbank flight say they're stunned.
It felt out of your control. It felt very scary. You just didn't know what it was.
Morgan, it's not clear what that 66-year-old retired fighter jet was doing in the area or how close it was to this Southwest plane, but 2 flight attendants were injured, and the FAA is now investigating. Morgan.
So many questions tonight, Trevor. Thank you. We turn now to the dangerous storms and life-threatening heat. More than 130 million Americans are on alert from Texas to Maine. The heat index more than 100 degrees across the Northeast. D.C. hitting 106 today, Philly 108, and 101 in both New York and Boston. Severe storms also rolling through with heavy rain, flooding, and strong winds. Brittany Bell has the forecast in just a moment, but first, a look at that extreme heat and severe weather. Tonight, powerful storms targeting the Northeast as millions swelter in searing heat from Philadelphia.
The extreme heat alerts are in place until 9 o'clock tonight. That's for heat indices between 105 to 110 degrees.
To Washington, D.C., our Perry Russum on the Mall, where it felt like 106 today.
Here at the Washington Monument, the extreme heat forcing the National Park Service to shut things down early today. They do not want people waiting in line in this heat with fears they could pass out.
New York City closing in on a record real temperature of 97 degrees, well over triple digits when you factor in stifling humidity. Dangerous and potentially deadly.
When it starts to progress into heat stroke, that's when patients typically come in and they're very confused.
Emergency rooms in New York City bracing for a surge in patients with heat stroke.
We're seeing a lot of younger patients just because they're out and about in the city, maybe not drinking as much as they should be, not hydrating enough, that are coming in just from passing out in the subway, on the streets.
The extreme heat fueling floods across the Midwest from Chicago to Kansas City. And in the West, homes washed away for the third time this month as monsoon rains slammed burn-scarred Ruidoso, New Mexico. And let's bring in meteorologist Brittany Bell of our sister station WABC right here in New York. Brittany, you've been outside tracking some of those dangerously hot temperatures that so many of us are dealing with. I mean, this morning it felt like a sauna. Now outside it feels like a steam room. Is there any relief in sight?
Well, there is some relief right around the corner for the Northeast, especially the first half of this weekend. But the price to pay for that relief is severe weather. So right now I'm still watching a severe thunderstorm watch that includes most of the Northeast, including New York City, in effect until 9 this evening. Already multiple reports of wind damage across New Jersey, including Staten Island. But look at the heat advisories that still continue for Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. Now the heat shifts to the southeast this weekend and early next week. Heat indices Saturday could approach 103 to 113 degrees. Raleigh could feel like 106, also 103 in Nashville. And look at the heat heading into early next week. More of the same heat index numbers well over the triple digits. Memphis, I want to point out Tuesday and Wednesday in Memphis, it could feel like 111 degrees, 110 in Jackson, even Savannah on Monday, heat index of 112. But back to the flooding threat. That's been an issue most of today, especially for Kansas City. There is a flood watch that includes Wichita, Kansas City, all the way towards Des Moines, Burlington, and even Chicago. And that's for rainfall rates that could approach 3 inches per hour. Keep in mind, some of this could fall while it's dark, adding extra danger. So make sure to stay weather aware if you're traveling out and about in that location, in that region throughout this weekend and this evening. Morgan?
All right, Brittany Bell, thank you. Now to the deadly shooting at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. One person killed, another injured. That shooting taking place early this morning in student housing. Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas has all the details tonight.
Tonight, the urgent search for a gunman on the run after a deadly shooting at this student housing complex at the University of New Mexico.
Rescue 3. Respond to a 27 Bravo 5G gunshot.
Those gunshot calls coming early this morning. Multiple law enforcement agencies rushing to the scene, finding one person killed, another wounded.
Then all of a sudden we just heard shots, like crazy shots. And after that, we peeked over our blinds, and we just see some kids running, dashing down the other side.
The university issuing a shelter in place and closing school grounds. Authorities saying the shooter may still be on campus. The new semester just weeks away. Some incoming students already on campus. Members of the football team say they were staying in the dorm where the shooting happened.
I was getting back into my dorm and they weren't letting me in because they had said that there was an open crime scene. The family had come and they were pretty emotional. They were crying.
The good news tonight, that wounded victim sustained non-life-threatening injuries and is expected to recover. Morgan?
All right, Pierre, thank you. Well, tonight we're learning more about the tragic death of a 9-year-old child at a Pennsylvania amusement park. It happened at Hershey Park, about 2 hours west of Philadelphia. Theme park officials confirming today that that incident happened at a wave pool at the boardwalk. It's an area featuring several different water attractions. Joining me now is ABC's Olivia Rubin. So, Olivia, what more do we know about what happened here?
Morgan, as you said, officials from the park today confirming that this did happen in the wave pool there, and their website describes it as a 378,000 gallon pool there that goes up to 6 feet deep. They now say that that pool is closed today out of respect for the victim's family, that 9-year-old girl, as well as the individuals who worked to save her. And in that statement, officials are talking about the efforts that they went through to try to save her as soon as this incident happened. I believe we have the graphic there talking about the statement and the life-saving measures, saying that, yes, from the moment our lifeguard teams recognized that a child was in distress, they performed an immediate rescue followed by continuous coordinating life-saving efforts by our lifeguards on site, first responders and medical personnel. Again, just a tragic situation there and really every parent's nightmare.
Every parent's nightmare, incredibly heartbreaking. And we also know that there were several lifeguards there on duty. What do we know about the situation with the lifeguards, and were they on duty and watching at the time of this drowning?
Well, they're saying they were, and they are giving now specific numbers of just how many there were in this new statement. They're saying that they had 10 lifeguards assigned specifically to the wave pool, which is, of course, part of this broader water park within Hershey Park. Again, 10 lifeguards on duty just for the wave pool, 100 lifeguards who were trained on the boardwalk itself. And again, what really is going on here is there's so many more questions than there are answers. Specifically, what happened that led up to this incident? Morgan, we just don't know yet. Of course, the park says that they are investigating, and local officials say that they are probing this incident too.
Yeah, you're right. So many questions here, and that is under investigation. Certainly thinking about the family. Thank you, Olivia Rubin, for your reporting. Next tonight, the president in Scotland for a working trip at his new golf course, while also trying to close another trade deal. That's where we find our Rachel Scott. Hi, Rachel.
Hey, Morgan. Well, the president just touched down here in Scotland for what is going to be about a 5-day visit here, where the president will be focused partly on golf as his family opens a new golf course, but also a little bit on trade. Amid the president's ongoing trade war, he is scheduled to meet with the British Prime Minister and talk about this trade deal that the administration says is now in place, as the president continues to have this overarching deadline with other countries to make a deal as well. But of course, hanging over all of this and his entire visit here is this controversy surrounding convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and the president's alleged ties to Epstein as well. As much as the president was getting questions on trade and other topics that he wanted to focus on, he was also getting repeated questions on Epstein as well. And just days after telling ABC News that he did receive a briefing about what was in the alleged Epstein files, the president now backtracking, saying that he did not receive a briefing at all. This is continuing to be this cloud of controversy and something that the president does not want to talk about, because this has become the biggest political crisis for President Trump in his second term thus far. Also, something that is going to be of note here, Morgan, of course, is the president's family opening this new golf course. You do have some critics that are questioning whether the president's personal ties and whether his family ties are overlapping too much with his official business, Morgan.
Thank you, Rachel. Next tonight, President Trump refusing to rule out pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell, who is serving 20 years behind bars for sex trafficking. The president on his way to Scotland saying, "It's something I have not thought about." Meanwhile, sources tell ABC News that Maxwell received limited immunity for her 2 days of meetings with DOJ lawyers. And tonight, we're learning what she was asked. Here's Chief Investigative Correspondent Eric Kontursky.
Tonight, President Trump's refusing to rule out a pardon for Jeffrey Epstein's former companion, Ghislaine Maxwell, who's now serving 20 years in prison for sex trafficking teenage girls.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell if she cooperated?
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something. It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
As the president spoke, Maxwell was meeting for the second day in a row with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who until recently was Trump's personal lawyer. Trump once socialized with Maxwell and Epstein. When Epstein was arrested in 2019, Trump said they'd had a falling out and hadn't spoken in 15 years. Maxwell has long faced questions.
I'll ask you about all the allegations that have come out, Ghislaine.
Happy New Year.
When she was arrested, the president said he wished her well. Sources tell ABC News it was Maxwell who requested this week's meetings with the Deputy Attorney General and that she was granted a limited form of immunity so she could answer questions without fear it could later be used against her.
She was asked maybe about 100 different people. She answered questions about everybody, and she didn't hold anything back.
In May, Attorney General Pam Bondi reportedly told the president his name appeared in the Justice Department's Epstein files multiple times. Trump denies that briefing ever happened.
No, I was never briefed, no.
Being named is not evidence of wrongdoing. Bondi has refused to release the files despite previously promising to do so. Trump, whose top supporters, including FBI Director Kash Patel, spread conspiracy theories about Epstein, is eager to change the subject.
I'm not focused on conspiracy theories.
But the story hasn't gone away, which sent the Justice Department's #2 official to Florida to meet the woman who helped Epstein recruit, groom, and abuse girls over the course of a decade. Annie Farmer was one of the women who testified against Maxwell.
She didn't just procure girls and women for Epstein, but she herself participated in their abuse.
What Maxwell wants now? To get out of prison.
Of course, everybody knows Miss Maxwell would welcome any relief. She's been in very difficult conditions for 5 years, and so she would welcome any relief.
Her lawyer tells me she did not ask for a pardon today, and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche did not offer one. But late today, the president making clear it's not off the table.
A lot of people have asked about pardon. This is just not a time to be talking about pardons. Todd will come back with whatever he's got.
The Deputy Attorney General said he would share what he learned from Ghislaine Maxwell at the appropriate time. And we should note, Morgan, meetings like this with law enforcement officials are often recorded. Morgan?
All right, Aaron Katersky, thank you so much for your reporting. Well, President Trump has withdrawn the nomination of Alina Habba, his former defense lawyer, to serve as the top federal prosecutor in New Jersey, clearing the way for her to serve as the acting U.S. attorney in the state. Habba's term as interim U.S. attorney was set to expire this week as federal judges in New Jersey moved to appoint someone else. But with 1 day left, Trump withdrew her nomination, essentially restarting the clock on what's usually a 120-day term. This move allows Habba to remain on the job for up to 210 days if no one is nominated to that position. Disgraced former Congressman George Santos is spending his first night in prison after pleading guilty to wire fraud and identity theft. The Long Island Republican reported to a prison in southern New Jersey earlier today. He was sentenced to 7 years. Santos was ousted from Congress after lying about much of his life story and admitting he deceived donors to fund his campaign. The U.S. military carried out an unusual raid in Syria today using ground forces instead of drone strikes. U.S. service members were flown to the area by helicopter and killed a senior Islamic State leader and his 2 sons. Martha Raddatz has more tonight. Martha?
Morgan, it is really highly unusual for U.S. forces to carry out a ground raid inside Syria, but a nighttime raid did include those U.S. forces. They were helicoptered in to the city of al-Bab in northwestern Syria, where Islamic extremists are operating in that area. The U.S. forces went in, and the Pentagon says they killed a senior ISIS leader, and 2 of his sons were killed as well, according to the Pentagon. Both, they say, were affiliated with ISIS. Morgan?
All right, Martha Raddatz, thank you. President Trump said today the U.S. was pulling out of Gaza's ceasefire talks, claiming that Hamas was not acting in good faith or negotiating on the release of hostages. Palestinians in Gaza were depending on the success of those talks to allow for more aid into the territory to alleviate a growing food crisis there. As if the situation could be any worse, hundreds of people have been killed near Israeli-approved U.S.-backed food distribution sites operated by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which last month received $30 million in funding from the U.S. State Department. Well, since then, their 4 distribution sites have been mired in controversy. Our Tom Sufi Burridge has tonight's Prime Focus.
At just 6 months old, Zainab Abu Halib is fighting to survive. Her body is severely malnourished. 4-year-old Razan Abu Zahir is also in a critical state. But Zainab and Razan are just two of tens of thousands of children in Gaza who the UN says are starving. And in the days after we filmed at this hospital in central Gaza, doctors say little Razan died. Aid agencies now warning there is man-made mass starvation in Gaza. Just weeks after a new US-Israel system was set up for distributing aid. This was the scene in early June at Gaza's Nasser hospital. A few days after that new aid system began, casualties streaming in, Palestinians who were shot on their way to collect food. 13-year-old Tahrir is asking for forgiveness from her dead mother. Her grief then turning to rage. Tahrir's mum Reem was shot dead earlier that morning. This video we verified capturing the panic and the crackle of gunfire as she and thousands of other hungry Palestinians gathered at sunrise less than a mile from an aid distribution site. People desperate for food sent running for their lives. Within hours, her body among those at a nearby hospital. The Red Cross saying 27 people, including children, were killed near the aid site on that day, and more than 150 injured.
توجهت ان غادا اجيب لنا للدور توجه راح اجيب بسطحين بس ان الابضار فجاءنا انه الرصاص بخبط فينا انا وانا مفتوح لرصاص الجالي فهذه المساعدات مصيده بالضبط يعني مثل المصيده بحبوها بيطلعوا الشباب المساكين بدهم اياه بطبخوه حتى يعني كثير من الناس الان بيعيشوا في مخمصه شديده.
The IDF said on that day its soldiers fired from a distance at suspects who they say approached them in a way that endangered their safety. Reem and others were trying to access an aid distribution point in Gaza run by an American-backed organisation known as the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which was established to address Israeli claims Hamas was seizing aid and profiting from it. The GHF was set up in late May. Since then, there has been chaos and killing near its sites on a regular basis. Cartloads of critically injured men were rushed to this hospital last week after a deadly stampede at a GHF distribution site. Those caught in the crush then treated on the floor, the hospital overflowing. At least 20 people were killed, according to the GHF. ABC News has also verified multiple videos capturing gunfire filmed on different days near GHF food distribution zones. The UN says it has recorded more than 1,000 Palestinians killed trying to get food since late May, more than 800 of those deaths near GHF sites. An American doctor operating in Gaza told us he's treated gunshot victims on an almost daily basis who were trying to access GHF sites.
They are riddled with gunshots to the chest, to the abdomen, to the limbs. You're seeing that your family is consistently not getting enough to eat. You're not having your meals that you're consistently getting. And then on top of that, there are these aid sites that turn into killing fields.
The desperate hunt for food in Gaza also causing chaos and killing away from GHF sites. The World Food Programme saying Israeli snipers and tanks opened fire on a crowd of Palestinians approaching a convoy of its aid trucks Sunday, killing more than 80 people, according to the UN. The IDF said its troops fired warning shots towards an immediate threat posed to them and said the number of casualties reported does not align with its own information. NGOs and Hamas accused the Israeli military of repeatedly firing on hungry Palestinians. The Israeli military says its troops have, on several occasions, let off warning shots towards crowds when people have deviated from designated routes. The IDF has denied deliberately shooting at unarmed civilians and says it is not preventing Gazans from reaching aid sites. but did acknowledge incidents where harm to civilians who arrived at distribution facilities were reported. The Israeli government says it is allowing food aid into Gaza and blames Hamas for violent incidents near distribution sites.
The problem is not Israel, the problem is Hamas. They loot the trucks, they block distribution, they weaponize hunger, and they deliberately starve their own people.
But the UN and other aid agencies say the GHF system, in which people are forced to walk for miles and then grab food if they're fast enough, is dangerous and degrading. And they refuse to take part, saying this military-run aid system breaches fundamental principles of humanitarian aid.
We don't see this as humanitarian in any way, shape, or form. It's a coercive, first come, first serve competition for survival inside shrinking and active conflict zones where even standing in line has become a death sentence. When a starving population is herded, towards these distributions, I mean, they're literally, quite literally herded like, animals. Chaos is inevitable.
The US-led Gaza Humanitarian Foundation says its sites have so far supplied 91 million meals and rejects the idea its aid system endangers lives.
These are very, very, very complex questions.
We interviewed the executive chairman of the GHF in early June, just after a series of deadly incidents near to their aid sites.
Those deaths are happening because of the nature of your scheme, that people need to move through a very perilous area.
No, the deaths are happening in the Gaza Strip because it's a war. I'm not doing this for anybody to die. We have one mission for people to be fed. And yet it's all happening in this incredibly complex environment. If every death is a tragedy, we'll do everything we can to avoid it. But we cannot stop distributing aid because it's a dangerous situation.
Still, as the war continues and the problem of hunger worsens, it remains the youngest children who are often suffering the most. So much care and time will be needed to nurse 6-month-old Zainab back to health. But for Tahrir and her brother Ahmed, who now live in Gaza amidst the ruins of their former home, a system that was supposed to give them food took, they say, the life of their mum. At the age of 12, Ahmed says he feels guilt because she died trying to get food for him and her 4 other children.
Powerful and incredibly important work. Tom Sufi Burge, thank you. Well, we're tracking several other headlines around the world tonight. French President Emmanuel Macron announced France will officially recognize the state of Palestine. He called for an immediate ceasefire and demilitarization of Hamas, saying it's essential to build up the state of Palestine to ensure its viability. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio strongly rejects the plan, saying the decision only sets back peace. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said a Palestinian state in these conditions would only be a launch pad to annihilate Israel. More than 80,000 people fled their homes as fighting intensified along the Thailand and Cambodia border. According to officials in the region, more than a dozen people, mostly civilians, have been killed. Violence erupted this week after a landmine explosion injured several Thai soldiers along a disputed area of the border. And in England, thousands of doctors walked off the job today over pay. The 5-day strike certain to disrupt patient care, but officials said emergency rooms would remain open. Doctors want a pay raise to make up for what the union officials say is a 20% pay cut since 2008, but government officials say it will not budge, claiming doctors get an average 29% raise as part of a deal to settle previous strikes. But coming up, how a grandmother stopped an unruly passenger from storming the cockpit mid-air. We'll hear from the Army veteran herself. Plus, as millions of you try to beat the heat this weekend, what you need to know to spot the signs of heat-related illness, especially when it comes to little ones. We'll be right back.
Alec Baldwin shares how the Rush shooting affected him, celebrating a very special first birthday, and the Georgia grandmother who saved the day on a recent flight. These stories and more in tonight's rundown. Speaking at the opening day of Comic-Con, Alec Baldwin discussing the emotional impact the 2021 shooting of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins on the set of the film Rust has had on his life.
You know, it's funny how something like that happens, which is as impactful as that, something as powerful as that happens in your life. How much it changes you. The change has just been, it's just immeasurable.
Involuntary manslaughter charges against Baldwin were dropped in July 2024 after a gun he was holding as a prop fired a live round, killing Hutchins. A baby boy who was born at only 21 weeks has just celebrated his first birthday. Guinness World Records has named him the world's most premature baby. Nash Keene was born last year weighing just 10 ounces and only 9 inches long. Nash's parents were told their son had a 0% chance of survival based on the data available. But despite the long odds, Nash is in good health. A Chuck E. Cheese's mascot has been arrested in Florida after a customer ratted him out for allegedly stealing her credit card information. The man was entertaining customers in his giant mouse costume when police hauled him out of the restaurant. When police removed his oversized Chuck E. Cheese head and searched the man, they say they found the stolen debit card in his pocket. Venus Williams says the real reason she decided to make an epic comeback to the sport is something many of us can identify with.
I had to come back for the insurance because they informed me earlier this year I'm on Cobra. So I was like, I got to get my benefits on. Started training. You guys know what it's like, and let me tell you, I'm always at the doctor, so I need this insurance.
The 7-time Grand Slam champion says she's planning to compete at the Cincinnati Open in August and possibly the U.S. Open. A Caitlin Clark rookie card is sold for a staggering $660,000, nearly doubling the record paid for a women's card. The card is signed and inscribed with Clark's scoring total for her rookie season. 14 rookie cards featuring Clark have sold at public auctions since she went pro last year. An Army veteran and grandmother is being hailed a hero after stopping a passenger who attempted to enter the cockpit on a Delta Airlines flight.
I felt like my life was in danger. I got her down on the ground. It wasn't hard to do because she wasn't even expecting me. And at that moment, I told the flight attendants, I said, could you please get some restraints for her? And I would say she was very strong, but my determination was even stronger.
The FAA says the woman was suffering from a medical emergency. No injuries were reported, and passengers made it safely to their final destination. Well, 100 million Americans are under heat alerts across the country, with advisories active from Texas to Maine. The National Weather Service saying the heat could impact large sections of the country with little to no overnight relief, putting many of us at risk of heat exhaustion and even heat stroke. But do you know what signs to look for in yourself? Well, what about your children? ABC medical contributor and Stanford Children's Health pediatrician, Dr. Alok Patel, joining us now. Dr. Patel, always great to have you. Okay, so with the heat reaching such high levels, what are some things that people need to be on the lookout for while out and about?
Good to be here with you, Morgan. And it's important that people really understand these signs of heat-related illness. A lot of people out there are familiar with the symptoms of heat exhaustion, such as excessive sweating, possibly feeling dizzy, tired, and muscle cramps. And if you do notice these symptoms, or you notice your child has these symptoms, it's important to get to a cool environment. Air conditioning. Now, if this progresses and your body loses its ability to cool itself, this can turn into heat stroke, which is a medical emergency. Those symptoms may include no longer sweating because you're out of fluid. You might have hot, dry skin, including worsening nausea, vomiting, muscle cramps, and what can be deadly is altered consciousness, possibly even a coma. So this can absolutely be life-threatening, and everyone needs to be aware of these symptoms and take it very seriously.
And especially for children as well, how can you make sure that your kids are staying safe? A lot of the times the kids don't want to come in and drink more water. They want to continue playing while they're out in the sun. What are some things that you can do?
Well, sometimes parents just need to make those rules and really understand that kids the elderly, people with underlying medical conditions who can't adequately cool themselves, kids have a different body surface area, need to be watched even more closely. So everyone out there should make sure you're encouraging things such as hydration, loose-fitting clothing. Don't forget the sunscreen. And Morgan, everyone needs to look at that heat. If you go outside and it doesn't really feel that hot, if you add in humidity, this can turn into heat exhaustion and potentially heat stroke if you're not careful quickly in even under 30 minutes. And we especially see this when people go outside to work out, run around, or go hiking. And one last extremely, extremely important note is to always have a buddy system if you're going out, and make sure people know where you're going if you do have to go outside in the heat. But it's best to stay away from those peak sunshine hours and try to go outside and play in the early morning or the evening.
Great tips, life-saving tips. Dr. Alok Patel, always great to have you. Thank you so much.
Stay cool.
Yes, you too. Well, coming up, big news if you're heading to the movies this weekend. Marvel's The Fantastic Four: First Steps is out today, and Linsey Davis sits down with the stars. We'll be right back. The latest entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Fantastic Four: First Steps, is hitting theaters this weekend. And with that, we're taking a look at the widely popular and profitable world of Marvel movies by the numbers. Fantastic Four: First Steps is the 37th movie in the MCU. And for those of you in the know, that makes it the first movie in Phase 6. Marvel holds the highest grossing film franchise of all time, raking in nearly $32 billion at the global box office. That includes a record nearly $2.8 billion for Avengers Endgame, the highest grossing film of all time at the time of its release. The franchise's global appeal is no surprise, though, at the wide world of more than 30 superheroes saving the day in 36 countries, plus another 30 dimensions, realms, and planets. From the lovable, like Groot, who says, "I am Groot," 36 times, a line Vin Diesel, by the way, recorded in 16 languages, to the more complicated, like Tony Stark, who musters 33 different nicknames for his co-stars while calling on Jarvis 49 times. And legendary fan service like the 21 Stan Lee cameos, plus another 3 posthumous appearances. And those mid and post-credit scenes in all except one movie, Avengers Endgame. And no spoilers here, but you may not want to leave the theater too quickly after the Fantastic Four: First Steps. Well, speaking of, what do Pedro Pascal, Ebon Moss-Backrack, Vanessa Kirby, and Joseph Quinn have in common? Well, they all sat down with our Linsey Davis to talk about their new roles as the first family of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the newest movie to hit the MCU, The Fantastic Four: First Steps. You can see Linsey's full half-hour special later tonight here on ABC News Live and tomorrow on Hulu and Disney+. But for now, here's the sneak peek.
Fantastic Four. I feel like energized, like maybe I'm going to get some superpowers just being with you all. Thank you.
Even though we're all in black.
So yes, everybody's in mourning, but coordinated nonetheless, that team spirit. This is all for all of you, your first steps, if you will, into the Marvel universe. How does it feel to be part of such a recognized franchise?
It helps to be together, I think. It's always been something I've been aware of from the beginning, but the gratitude that I feel to reflect on the fact that we got to step into this together as a cast, become family for the Fantastic Four, which is the first Marvel family. And when anyone was down, somebody else would be up. Sometimes we were all up at the same time, and sometimes we were all down at the same time, but we were never alone. And that was one of the most special professional experiences and personal experiences that I've ever had.
You mentioned family. It felt very organic on the screen. Was that something that you felt that chemistry right away, or is it something you actually worked on?
I think the chemistry was there pretty early on, but the relationships deepened as the film progressed. It was clear from the group chat early on, before we even started filming, that we were dealing with 3 very funny, silly, imaginative people.
Only 3?
Well, the other 3, I can't refer to myself as such. And it was encouraging, you know. It's nice kind of being able to spend time with people that that make you laugh, that you feel cared for by.
Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four. Reed, he's all brain. Johnny, he's hot. Sue, she's always there. Or is she?
Hello, boys. Jesus.
Ben is everybody's best friend. Even man's best friend's best friend.
How's your day going?
Marvel actually published its first issue of the Fantastic Four back in 1961. How daunting was that to really do that deep dive into the research of who your characters are to make sure you kind of get that representation right?
It was daunting. In one hand, you have an enormous amount of source material, 60-something years of comic books to dig into, to see what these relationships are, what they've gone through. But then mostly daunting because it's a family that means so much to fans. And, we want to honor this, and we want to honor this family, and we are stewards of these characters, and we just want to make sure that we are doing right by them.
There's a dedicated fan base. So how do you remain true to the original characters from the comic books, but at the same time kind of make it yours and put your own spin on it?
Vanessa, answer a question.
There have been so many stories about this family and the things that they did, and also different traits of theirs that were brought out in different issues, and you had to try and collect all of them, or collate all of them, and then try and distill them into an essence, I think, of who the personality is, and then go and inhabit it in 2025 in this Matt Shakman's vision, his version of what happens. And I loved that challenge. I thought that actually I was very grateful that Sue in the comics seemed so multifaceted. She was not just a mother and a wife that defined her as a woman, but also she had 4 doctorates. She was super intelligent, and they were all astronauts, and that added another dimension to it. Why do they want to be explorers? What does that mean about who their psyches? And then trying to add that all in and then be with each other and be with your family and then hoping for the best.
And you can catch Linsey's entire half-hour specials later tonight here on ABC News Live. You can also watch on Hulu and Disney+. But coming up, her one-of-a-kind nails and bold fashions are a hit on TikTok. We have the woman behind LOL Fashion Dump here to share her tips with us. We turn now to our weekly segment, TikTok, where we take a closer look at the story behind the sensation. Charms, designs, and nails with a personality of their own. Content creator LOL Fashion Dump, aka Jacqueline, is the artist behind the magic, redefining nail art for nearly 2 million followers on TikTok. Let's take a look.
It's nail day. It's also a really bad hair day. Here is our design. So cute. We're just gonna go one by one to get her done. I'm doing my base coats. I don't really have like 14 hours to do my nails a day. We'll see what we can get done.
And Jacqueline joins us in studio. Jacqueline, welcome to the show. Okay, so you are the TikTok guru for all things nails, all things manicure, also fashion as well. Tell me how you got started with nails.
Well, thank you so much. I started just DIY nails like 4 or 5 years ago. I fell in love with the art form, and I'm just excited to try new things all day, every day. I love nails. I love fashion, everything.
And it's press-on nails as well, right?
Yeah, so I used to do acrylic. Now I've moved on to Gel-X, and I do like press-ons here and there, like when I don't have time for like a full set, because that's like a whole huge long ordeal.
I love a good press-on set.
Yeah.
By the way, let's do a nail check on your nails.
Okay, nail check. We have ABC nails today. We have a little spinning ABC logo. So cute.
So cute.
That one says we're live. It's adorable.
Wait, and is that me on the middle nail?
I did a little broadcaster on my nail.
We're gonna say it's me.
We're gonna say it's you. It's definitely you.
How do you come up with these designs?
I get a lot of inspiration from like just everyday things. Like I have a planned set for next week. Like I'm a 2000s baby, so I want to do like a full like 2000 niche little nostalgia set. So just like random everyday things.
It's art, but it's also mechanics as well. Like I can't get over the fidget spinner for the ABC nails. Yeah. I mean, that takes a lot of thought, but then also a little bit of engineering. I mean, girls in STEM.
Yeah. I just love experimenting with art and fashion and self-expression. And I'm always, every time I do a set, like I'm looking to do something new that I haven't done before. And that's the thing, if it doesn't come out perfect, try again next time, redo it, whatever. And that's kind of like my approach to how I present myself.
You know, your username hints at it, but you're also into thrifting as well and shopping high end for less. You know, what are your secrets for building that, you know, high end wardrobe, but again, for less?
My, I guess, tip is walk into the thrift store by yourself with an open mind. Don't go looking for something specific, but you'll know when something like suits you. Yeah.
That's when I do the most damage, is when I walk into a store and I don't have a plan, but I'm gonna try that, and then I'm gonna blame my credit card bill on you.
Oh God.
You've created such a unique look. Your step-by-step designs and your dressing guides get tens of thousands of likes on TikTok, we understand. What advice do you have for those who want to take that leap into fashion, but maybe are a little hesitant to try to, you know, to stray away from, you know, the mainstream?
Yeah, I think life should be fun and experimental, you know, play with different versions of yourself, and eventually you'll come to a point where like this feels natural and this feels like me, and don't force anything. If you try something and you don't like it, put it to the side for now, but just experiment with yourself and do things you love, and yeah.
You know, what's been so inspiring to see is that you've built such a huge following. What's your advice for those who see you and say, hey, I want to do that, I want to try that?
Yeah, my advice would be just do it. Just stay true to yourself, for yourself. It doesn't have to be for anyone. Like, and people, like if people say, oh, like I want to dress like you, I love that. But also like I want you to dress for you. So that's my advice, is do you for you, and just be yourself and be authentic, and good things will come.
Do you, for you, be you. You can put that on a t-shirt.
I should.
Jacqueline, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. And you can check out LOL Fashion Dump for wearable art and fashion inspiration. And that's our show for this hour. I'm Morgan Norwood. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.